All right, here we are. So, welcome to the third episode of The Soul's Kitchen. My name is Lisa Wilby, and I love to have conversations with people who are living their soul's desire or soul's dreams. And today I am so happy to welcome Lisa Perley Dutcher, who is the founder of the Kehkimin Wolastoque Language Land Immersion School. Um, Teaching the Wolastoque language to young kindergartners. So Lisa, welcome. Thank you so much for talking to me today. I also want to say that you're the proud mom of 4 talented sons, and you have granddaughters. And so I guess what I want to ask you is why. Tell me about the language, why it's important, and why now.
Right. Okay. Well, Lewin, thank you, Lisa, for that nice introduction and for welcoming me here to be a speaker in your Soul's Kitchen. I think that's a fabulous thing to be doing, to having these discussions.
Thank you.
It's an interesting question because there's so much involved in answering that question. First off, I try to I'd like to talk I talk about my family, but also talk about you know um, my decision making process in my life, and I guess I
Okay.
really, as we had talked about before, with my past career as being a nurse,
Mm-hmm.
leaving that profession, and just knowing when it's time.
Mm.
I like the whole soul kitchen thing because I think if you listen to your soul,
Mm-hmm.
if you listen to your spirit will
Mm.
guide you in ways where you need to be where you need to be putting your time, where you need to be putting your energy.
Ah, yeah.
And I really feel that's a way that I try to move in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And it's never failed me so far, like in terms of the decisions that I've made. Um, in picking my partner, to
Mm-hmm.
where we are living, to what I'm doing, to just, being not, taking the time to listen. And I've always taught my children that as like there is a voice inside of you. It's your
Mm.
spirit, and it tries to direct you. But if we don't listen to it, the voice gets small, and you
Right.
can't hear it. And so to me, it's like, the more you practice listening to your soul, your spirit, the stronger it becomes. And so for me, following that has been very important. So going back to, I spent over 30 years as a nurse,
Mm-hmm.
and I loved it. I enjoyed, because my main focus was working with Indigenous communities and setting up health programs and doing all kinds of interesting things. And I did truly enjoy it. But I really felt that there was a time in my life that I really felt that need to change directions. Like I said, there was that voice inside that's like, it's time for you to do something else. And so I was waiting, I was listening for some signs. And then, one of the things that kept pointing back to is like my language. And what
Mm.
kind of got me thinking about it was more that, because I'd had people around me always say, oh, our language is becoming extinct.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we need to focus more on it. And there was an urgency with a lot of people that were around me. And
Right.
I'm thinking, oh, why is there such an urgency? Like I feel like the places where I hang out, like my mom was a fluent speaker, my
Mm-hmm.
sister was a fluent speaker, my aunt was a fluent speaker. Like people that I hung out with on a regular were fluent speakers. So it
Right.
didn't seem like it was like
Urgent.
becoming extinct. Yeah. So, I
Right.
mean,
Okay.
and I really didn't appreciate, I don't think, because I was focused on my career and doing
Hmm.
this, so, but then, those people in my life, my mom, my sister, and my aunt, passed away within 6 months of each other,
Oh my goodness. I'm
same
so
year.
sorry.
Yeah.
Wow.
And when I lost them, there was this real silence that sunk into me. And I was like, I've just lost my three main people that were my supporters, that were people I heard the language and the culture and everything from these people. And I was like, they're gone. They're all gone.
Right.
And it's like there was a real, I mean, of course I mourned and I grieved
Hmm.
for probably like heavy grief and for probably about a year and a half maybe. And then I started realizing that voice started getting stronger that, you have to do something. It's up to you now. And
Right.
I'm like, that realization was so scary because I'm like, what?
What
So
am I going to do?
it's me now. It's like I'm
Yeah.
a fluent speaker, but I've been around fluent speakers my whole life. And the reason I guess that I can say that I'm not a fluent speaker is because I did go to day schools
Mm.
and we were punished for speaking our language. And so that's one component of it that really shut my language development down. And then also, like when I would come home, my grandmother and they would all start to speak English to me. I mean, they weren't very good English speakers, but
Right.
they try not to speak the language around me because they knew that when I went to school, I would be punished for speaking the language. So
Right.
I think they were trying to protect me. And so, you know, and they would say things like, oh, our language, if you learn our language, it's not going to get you anywhere in the world. And, they would
Oh,
say those sorts of things to me. And I'd be like,
right.
and I'm like, it didn't make sense, it never made sense to me. So, but, you grow up and you have your life and that's kind of was always sitting there with me. And then when I lost my three significant people in my life, I really went deep into that. And I was like, no, I really feel like this is my time. I need to do something. Um, so the opportunity came up for me to take a 2-year language intensive program, which I really felt like this was for me. This is my healing.
Hmm.
And so when I took and I hadn't been in school for a long time, so I was,
Yeah.
this was a big step for me. But I thought, no, this is going to be good. This is going to be good for me, and I think I can do it. So I applied, and I got accepted, and then I was the oldest person in the classroom, of course, and a lot of it was not just language learning, but it was also cultural activities that we would do. We
Right.
would go harvest medicines, we would make baskets, we would make all kinds of things. We made our own regalia and stuff like that.
Hmm.
So we did a lot of different things in the afternoon, like
Right.
incorporating language into that. So it was a great experience. But as I was coming toward the 2-year ending of the 2-year, I had realized then I really didn't want to go back into nursing. I was kind of
Okay.
done with that part of my life. And, I wanted to try something different. And so I'd sit around with some of the other students, and we're kind of always saying, like, I wonder what would we do to use the language? And
Right.
so we had that discussion, and like a small group of us said, well, because some of the elders were saying, well, you have to teach the young people.
Right.
That's what's going to
Yeah.
save our language, right? So we're like, okay, so maybe we should, you know, um, start something, that we couldn't do that. Anyway, so I called up a few elders that I had worked with and some of my relatives, and I said, oh, why don't you come to the house? I said, I'd like to talk to you about something. And then I invited some of my fellow students over, and we just had a chat about it. And then we kind of got to the point where we decided we're going to do it.
Wow.
Because we didn't, the elders were like, yes, we need this. It needs to happen. We'll support you.
Right.
And so we're like, okay, so how are we going to do this? So we kept meeting around and so started applying for some grants and reaching out, meeting with people, talking with people. And then we got our first grant, which was a big boost for us, because we thought, well, now we can start developing resources, because we realized that there's not a lot of resources out there that we can use for a curriculum,
right,
or for reading, stories even, or anything. So we were kind of like, let's spend our time. So the first year we actually did that. We developed our first curriculum book. And then we developed a science series book, that because we were going to be land-based, we decided.
right.
We took some land-based training. And then we started kind of trying to figure out where we're going to do this, so it was becoming real, so it's like,
right.
Okay, so let's
materials, you need a place like that. I'm just thinking as you're speaking, all of the things, you don't think about it. You think,
No.
you just go to school and the building is there, all the stuff
Everything's
is there.
there.
But in this case, there's nothing there.
We had
fascinating.
Nothing.
Wow.
Yeah, and we didn't even know what we didn't know. And it was
right.
So we're just in the middle of it, and we're like, okay, so, and these folks are younger than me, so they have even less work experience. But at least for me, I had worked, I knew about proposal writing. I had worked with government before. I worked in, different sectors of health. I had, I had lots of real work life experience. I worked at the university educating. So I had an educational background as well. So I thought we can do this. I said, I have a lot of skills to bring this, and everybody else has their thing that they were bringing to it. So we had a good little team that we were counting on to do this work. And so we just kind of got to work and started filling all the gaps that we needed to fill.
And then the students came. Is it true?
Yeah, actually,
when you build it, they will come.
Well, this is what's interesting about this is that, so we didn't try, like I said, well, we're very nervous. I'm very nervous about it. Even still, I'm always like, oh, there's so much to think about, there's so much risk. And, so the things that, we were really uncertain about was where we were going to do this. How was this supported? Was it going to be sustainable? So, after meeting with, setting up a meeting with Mayor Kate Rogers, and, kind of asking for a space here in Fredericton.
Right.
If they had any space that we could use where it would be, conducive to land-based education. And I had actually asked them for Odell. And they said, well, they're a little bit protective of Odell. And I was like, yeah, okay. Well, and they said, well, we might have another place for you though.
Right.
So anyway, they proposed Killarney. So we set up, they said that they would lease it to us for a year, help us get, help to us get our legs. And so we did that for a year. We started trying to figure out, do we, partner with the province, or do we stay independent? Because that was one of the big challenges, because, if you go with what the province is, then you pretty much have to follow all their rules.
Right.
And it really made it really restrictive to what we were trying to do, because they weren't really supporting land-based education. They weren't supporting, Wolastoque immersion, or they didn't
Right.
have the supports that we needed. And so we kind of stayed independent. It was a little, like I said, it's still a little scary, because it's like you're trying to figure everything out, right?
It's still evolving.
It's still evolving.
Yeah.
We're in our third year right now. So, actually, are we in our going into our fifth, but we've only been in operation for 3.
Okay.
This is our third year in operation. But that first 2 years were more development.
Of the development work. Wow, it's amazing. And I'm just curious, because I think about timing a lot in the, in my life, in events that happen in the world. And I'm just thinking, even with the knowledge that's coming out about the residential schools. And I mean, First Nations people have been here for forever, and it's just quietly just listening and waiting. I don't mean quietly listening and waiting. A lot of things have happened, but what do you think about the timing that everything seems to be coming kind of together? People are starting to listen and know the stories of the past.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that really, like, I think timing, and I tell this to my husband all the time, timing is everything. And I really think it is. I mean, I think 10 years ago, I don't know that, we would have gotten the type of support that we're getting from the city or from other, groups. Because, like, we have a long history, I guess, of being a marginal group throughout Canada and the US. And so we have a history that really wants to be forgotten by the general public, because, if it's to be remembered, then there's restitution that has to happen.
Yeah.
So it's like, once it started to unfold, and I remember attending something, I think it had to do with the United Church, and they had a deacon or something that was an Indigenous man, and he was kind of talking about residential schools back then, and that would have been like, I don't know, maybe 15, 20 years ago. And I was like, I was in total kind of awe of that, and thinking, wow, that takes a lot of bravery to get up there and talk about these things, like, because, I mean, even in my own community, people just wouldn't talk about it. Like, it was like a taboo topic that nobody talked about. And so, that was a big hurdle, like, for us, for that truth telling to come out and to become more into the public realm, was a really important aspect of kind of moving that,
moving the needle.
Yeah, and getting things, opening things up. And I think, I think we're in a time where people are seeking truth, and I feel like, people, well, the majority of people, I should say, I think, and I see in my circles, they're very conscious of knowing truth and being knowledgeable of our past.
Right.
And so I think, the timing, like, is good. And I think in the larger scheme of things, it really was meant to happen at this time. I really feel that. And, we have a prophecy saying that, there will be a time when it will be the children who will open the minds and the hearts of the people. And I really feel like, but I never thought of it in terms of the children who have already passed, like those children,
Right. Oh my
like, you know what I
goodness.
mean? I often
Yes.
thought of it as the children that like are around that, but it was the children
Children.
who were murdered and taken, and
Right.
those
That
ones,
love.
their voices were crying out. Their
Right.
voices were the ones that were coming out loud because they needed that, that reconciliation. They needed that. And so, for us to, and our society to be open to that, I think is that absolutely, it's a shift in humanity. I really
There
believe.
is, I think you're right. I see that, I feel the shift too. There is, and
Mhm.
it's so amazing to see. It's so bad, too bad it took so long, but
Yes.
it's happening.
And I
Um,
only wish it would be happening around the world, but I just feel like we need to embrace it's happening in this part of the world.
right.
And that social justice needs to prevail, and it will prevail, but it's just like
It takes time,
it
and like the
takes
work that you're doing, you
yes.
know, and I'm just, and I just so I don't know how to ask this question. Like, what is it about language that's that speaks to, or what does it do for the culture and the community? What is it about? I know that the language was lost, so there's only, I think, if I'm correct, less than 100 fluent Wolastoque speaking
Well,
people,
it's a
something like
real,
that.
I mean, that we haven't done a study to determine. It's just been
Right.
estimated
Okay.
because we only have like 6 Wolastoqey communities in New Brunswick
Right.
now. So it's kind of, you kind of know who the speakers are.
Right.
So it's like, so there's like, when we speak about language loss, we speak about like, language being taken from us, being
Yes,
stolen
this is
from us.
right. Yeah.
And I feel like, that's a truth that needs to be told. And I think that, um, I did not want to lose my language, but I did. And
Right.
but it's still there. It still sits with me, and I'm still nurturing that and helping it to grow. So I think that, there was always this piece of me that was missing, and I believe that that connection to my culture was through my language. And so that
Right.
is kind of the gateway, like, to understanding your culture, to understanding your identity. It's all kind of embedded within language, because it really illuminates your worldview. Like,
Right.
it's not just words, it's a way of
It's a
looking.
way of communicating.
Yeah, it's a way
And
of communicating, a way of looking at the world, and your values and your beliefs are
mm,
embedded within that language. So it's like you're losing so much when you don't have that. And,
right.
so, and then you try to, like, in our language doesn't really always translate very easily to English because it's our concepts are different.
Right. I read, it's, and I don't know if I'm correct in this, but it's like a polysynthetic language. Is that correct? Because
Yes.
so explain that if you don't mind, because I find that really interesting.
Well, I'm not really sure on what the total meaning of that means, but what I understand is that it's very, I mean, it's very poetic for one thing,
Right.
and it's also speaks can take various concepts and put them into like a phrase,
Right. So like
like,
a word does not translate like word for word. I guess that's what
no,
I understand about
no.
it, which is
Like, so
so
for you would say goodbye,
right.
and for us, we would say Kehkimin until we meet again.
Right. Yeah, I love
It's
that.
not a dismissive of, it's just a quick
Goodbye.
goodbye.
Yeah.
It's like until if we don't meet again on this plane, we may meet on the next plane.
Right.
Like, you know what I
There's
mean?
more
But we
meaning.
still,
Yeah, I do. Yeah. That's so fun.
yeah,
I love that. I get getting goosebumps.
yeah,
It's
yeah. So I mean,
beautiful.
that's how I understand that, is like
Right.
it's just um there's so much to the language that, I mean, for one thing, we're a very verb-based language, so very action-orientated
Mm-hmm.
is a
And that must be interesting to teach that,
yeah.
to instruct that. And when you say land-based, so can you talk about that a little bit? So there's more involved
Yeah.
than just
Like to us, our language is rooted from the land
from
because
the land.
our
Yes.
experiences were like very much like a part of our environment and how we related to the environment, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we wanted to make sure that when we were doing this, that we're not only bringing back the language, we're also bringing back the culture. And that
Right.
culture is where the relational happens with the language and the land
Right.
and the environment. So for us, it's like those two are very interconnected. And so say, when we go out with the kids, the kids learn about respect, like
Mm-hmm.
our values of respect. We go out, we don't step on the bugs, we don't,
Right.
we don't pick things up or insects or whatever and try to make it our own. Like,
Right.
you know what I mean?
Yes,
And
I
so
do.
we had to teach a lot of that to the kids, but because they were coming in and be like, I mean, they'd see a frog and they want to catch it, of course, it's all
Oh,
fun.
yeah. And
But
put it,
it's like we
yeah.
have to release it back into its own environment. And like
Mm-hmm.
kids really had a hard time with that because they wanted to keep it. And and that's
Yeah.
why I think with us, like our culture clashes so much from Western
Mm-hmm.
cultures because it's like we don't have to own everything. Like
Right.
it is what it is. Like, you know what I mean? And a lot of our like you see museums now and a lot of our artifacts are in there and they're
Mm-hmm.
not meant to be there.
They're not meant to be there.
No.
I know it's sort of like this culture, and I know it's not exactly the same thing, but people will say, take a picture, take a picture, take a
Mhm.
picture. And I'm like, I don't want to take a picture. I want to just enjoy whatever it
The
is I'm
moment.
enjoying it. I'll remember it. I don't have time to pull my camera out, or I mean, it's just an example, but I
Yeah,
think I know
something
what you're,
like that. It's like
yeah.
very I think modern like society too is
Mm-hmm.
kind of driving that
Oh,
of
yes.
technology and all of that.
Yeah.
So it's like, and not that we don't, use some of that. It's
Well,
just
for sure. I mean, we're using it here right now.
yeah,
But
exactly.
it's great when when you can use it for the good of like having these conversations. I want people to hear this conversation, but you're
Yeah.
right, there's an overuse and worshiping almost of that kind of thing.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
economy or
Yeah.
consumerism becomes the all most important. And it's like, we really want kids to appreciate, the environment, the trees, the just the medicine that's there that we can use. Like oftentimes we'll harvest
Right.
the things and we'll make a tea for them so they can get to experience like harvesting it and then,
And
also taking it to the place where we can drink it and
mm-hmm.
know that it's this is good for us, this is medicine. So we do that with the kids, like they learn how to tap trees for maple
um,
syrup, to just there's just so much we do in
can adults go to the school? I want to go learn all of
I
that.
know it is something like, and I think of these kids and I think, oh my goodness, you're so blessed to be able
They're
to do
so
this.
they are. And even just I think too, like people crave stillness. And it's sort of like you talked about before, that inner knowing of when you knew it was time to do something or make how you
Mhm.
make your decisions. I
Mhm.
love that because I don't think people take enough time to be still or go for a walk or just to be
Yeah.
quiet to
And
to
that's it. And like even
yeah.
like when I worked as a nurse, like I knew, like I was like, you know what? I would try to listen to my patients say, you know what,
Mm-hmm.
you already know the answer to your problem. I'm here to
Mm-hmm.
listen to you, Tell me what you think
Right.
it is. Like, and it is. It's so
Right.
true. It's like we already know ourselves the best. And if we listen, we might even be able to heal ourselves. Like, it's just
I believe that. But
yeah.
when you say that, Lisa, if you don't mind expanding on that, because I don't know how to explain that. Like how when my brother asked me something, I told him something, I forget what it is now, and he's like, "How do you know that?" And I just said to him, "I just know it. I know it's true in my bones, in my body, whatever it was I was telling him. I don't." And it
Mhm.
wasn't like a fact. It was just something
Yeah.
that I knew. And so I don't know how to describe,
Well,
how
I
you
think
do
it
know
is
that.
like your spirit knows, like, you know
Your
what I mean?
spirit
It's
knows.
your
Yeah.
when my husband's fun, like he has a harder time. He struggles a little bit more with these
Okay.
things. But I was like, it's we call it intuition, right? I
Right.
guess your language,
Yeah.
music language might call it that. And it's your intuitive knowingness that you have, that we all have.
Hmm.
But I think for a lot of people, it gets shut down very young. And so
Hmm.
they don't know how to activate that for themselves. So
Right.
oftentimes, and you see people making decisions, you're like, oh, why are they doing that? Or like, you
Hmm.
already know the end of that story.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
like, but that's the thing that they have. They're learning these lessons, right?
Right.
And
And sometimes they have to go down that road to realize,
to
okay,
realize, yeah.
yeah,
So
I,
it's like to me, it's those are the lessons. But I'm glad I did listen and
yes.
doing what we're doing. I mean, not saying that it's easy. It's not without its challenges. And but I really feel in my heart that this is what needs to be done.
Well,
And
yeah.
little by little you build and you nurture these young little ones to be you know,
To
the
think
total
differently.
opposite of what I experienced. And
Right.
I think to me, like, that's what really motivates me is when I realize that, you know, your education was in fear. Like
Right.
my early education was all in fear, like fear of the nuns, fear of
Hmm.
being strapped, fear of speaking, fear of everything. And to us, we can bring love to these kids and let them
Oh,
feel joy
yeah.
and love every day and curiosity and allowing them space to learn and to explore and like just to it's such a
Right.
beautiful gift that we can be part of to offer to these children and I just wish every child could kind of experience this
Well,
because
maybe, well, that's so beautiful, Lisa. Maybe, maybe you doing this, it will, others will do it. It will kind of grow,
I hope
you
so,
know.
yeah.
Oh, I think so. Because I would get about timing. And I know I've asked you this question along, I don't know if you remember this, but because you have, and I don't want to talk to you and say you're the mother of four beautiful, talented boys, but you are.
Oh,
And I asked you what I said, Lisa, how did you nurture these beautiful, souls like they're artists and you said to me, just a mother's love.
it
And
really does
I
come down to it.
I know, but I'm hearing that in you, like with your love for these children that you're teaching, and it
Yeah,
is just love. And I mean, I shouldn't say just love, but it's just so simple, but it's so true. And you're
it's so
and
true.
letting them be and nurturing who they are is
Mhm.
just so beautiful.
'Cause we can shut that
Yeah,
and you see it, and it's like, "Oh, my body just cringes when I see it," because it's like,
yeah,
parents sometimes will do this to their children is they'll, shut them down and,
mm-hmm.
when they're just being so pure and honest and
Mm,
allowing them to of course, we always give them guidance and try to help them, but
yeah,
it's not shutting them down. Maybe, if they come up or do something or let's talk about why that happened, or let's talk about, you know, why you decided to do that, you know,
right. Or even be
instead of,
putting kids in a classroom all day and just expecting them to sit there.
"Oh,
That's another thing. Like they need to be outside and learning, like you're
yeah."
doing with the kids. We
And
all
always
need
be
that
on your kid's
education.
side. Like, it's like, I remember teachers used to come and say, well, this child of yours, they don't pay attention, but they're doing really good in the class. I was like,
Right,
well, he might be bored for
right,
one. And it's like, I don't know, but he that's the way he learns.
right,
So there's not a problem.
right. And also figuring out how the child learns. The not, we only had one way. And if you
Mhm.
you were given a test, if you didn't pass that test, you didn't know anything. But now we
Yes.
know there are so many ways to learn. Like
Oh
not, and
gosh.
people have intelligences in different ways. And yeah,
Like, I wanted to say Kehkimin,
yes,
Kehkimin.
Kehkimin.
Um,
Right. What
it's
does?
a beautiful, like, I have this beautiful medallion,
Oh,
but
that's
this was
beautiful.
made this is our symbol, and
Okay.
for the school.
Yes.
And it does have Kehkimin on there, but you might not be able to see it.
Okay.
But I mean, Kehkimin,
Kehkimin.
that
Oh.
word means teach me.
Ah.
But in the process, like, to take that word teach me, what it means in our
Mm-hmm.
language is not, as I teach you, you are also teaching me.
Mm,
So it's that reciprocity. It's that
right.
dual learning process, right? And the teachers understand this very well. So I am like, when we're working with these children, we're not only teaching them, but they're teaching us.
They're teaching us.
And
Yes.
always remember that. Like, if you're being challenged by something a child's doing, they might be
There's a
triggering
lesson.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's a
there's a
lesson.
lesson in that. Like, so what is it? Like, take the time to reflect on that, and make it into a time of learning for yourself.
Right.
But when I say, when I always include the teachers in my count of, like, the students, because it's like they are
They're
also
also students. Yes.
students. They're here learning. So that's the beauty of the model that we have, because that's kind of the philosophy, the basis for what we're doing is, as I learn, as I teach, I
Teach,
also,
I also learn.
yeah.
Yes. That's so beautiful. Is there anything that community or people who might be watching this conversation can we do to help in any way? Like,
I mean, yes, I mean, we're open to needing help. I mean, for sure. I mean, the biggest thing, that because we are an endangered language, for sure,
mhm,
it's not even controversial. Um, it's something that, if you can learn some words in Wolastoque,
mhm.
if you can support monetarily, if there's a
Okay.
skill you have, if there's something you can bring to the table, or if you've heard of something that could be helpful, because we still don't have a permanent place, and we're still working on it.
Okay. You're still looking for a
Yeah,
place.
we've done our fundraising has really, like, in the 3 years, we've gotten to a place where we have enough for us, like, a good down payment, but it's not enough to finish the
Right. Okay.
thing. So, but
Okay.
we would
So
like to have a more permanent space there where we're at, because we're just leasing the space from
Killarney.
the city. Yeah. So,
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good to know.
and we have a
Awesome.
GoFundMe page, Kehkimin.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
It's
right.
Yeah, it's spelled Kehkimin. And
Kehkimin.
yeah,
Yes.
and you can go to our website, kehkimin.org.
Okay.
Check us out.
Well, that's awesome. Lisa, I thank you. Is there anything else that you'd love to say? I love this conversation.
Well, Leo and Lisa, and I
Yeah, thank
appreciate
you.
um, all that you do, and who you are as well, and always like your enthusiasm for things, and what you bring.
Thank you.
Um, so yeah, and I just hope people can be inspired by some of this.
Well, I'm inspired. I'm sure others are too. So thank you so much. And maybe
Okay.
we'll talk again soon. You never know.
Yes. Upchich Kanimio.
Okay, what does
Means
that mean?
until we meet again.
Until we meet again. Sounds good. So hang on there, Lisa. I'm just going to press the end here. Thank you again, Lisa.
Okay, no problem.